Good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to discuss a most important task, and this task or activity or situation or the scenarios will come very rarely, and most of the times, anyone of the DBA team must face the problems. Okay. Uh, the topic is called like a suspect state. So, uh, suspect state, today we are going to discuss. Before going to the suspect state, let's go for the what are the states available in the database. Okay. Then we can go for discuss one by one. Let's start with the few states. Okay. So if you go to the databases, you are seeing the few databases, right? Few databases are online, few databases are restoring mode, right? So here, what are the database states? States like online, online state, offline state, like not state means restoring state or restore mode or restoring pending recovery state, suspect state, then standby mode. It's not a standby mode state, it's a standby state, like single user mode. This is a standby mode. Single user mode, multi user mode. Then you can call like a restriction mode. So here the states of the database like online and offline and restoring state. These are the commonly we can see the every environment. So online means the database up and running, that is allowing the connections to the users and application team as well as the SQL Server backend sessions to allow and provide the request back to the environment. That may be users connections, that may be application connections, or that may be any one of these scenarios. So online means the database is up and running, that is providing the feedback to the environment, that may be application or that may be users. So offline. So next state is like a offline. What is the offline state? Offline state is the one of the state in the database. In the offline state, what will happen? The connection or the database will associate with the SQL Server, but the database won't available for the user operations and as well as the application for other environments. What is that means? Like,
Yeah, Vivek got that right.
sorry. Hi, Raghu. Okay, I'm audible, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here we are in the offline. We are discussing the some states of the database. Then we can discuss the suspect state and other recovery models. Not recovery models, like we can recover the databases if they went to suspect state or corrupt. right now we are discussing about the offline. Okay, the offline state, as I mentioned, the database, the connection is associating to the SQL server, but it won't allow the connection to the users or application or maybe any other uh, connection to the SQL server. So in the offline means like completely the sessions it won't allow, but the physically and logically the files will be associated to the SQL server. And we have one more state called restoring state. The restoring state, generally we can see whenever we doing the database restoring from the database backups. At that time, if you leave the database to like to tell we have a other database backups, don't bring the database online. I have a other backups. I will restore or I will apply those backups until restore the other backups. Don't bring the database to online state. That state called like restoring state. In the restoring state, the database connections, it won't allow the sessions to application or users or any one of the SQL Server backend connectivities. So this restoring state, the logically, the physically, the files will be connected to the SQL Server. It will wait for to holding the database files, and it will wait for the upcoming or other backups to restore to that particular database. So we have one more state called pending recovery state. So here, what is the pending recovery state? The pending recovery state, generally we can see whenever you going for the database restore from the database backup from any environment, from production to testing or testing to production, while restoring the database from backups in the last page, like in the restoring pages, we have a copy paste, redo paste, undo paste. After that, the last page is recovering state, right? Recovering page. So in the recovering page, we can see the pending recovery state. What is that means? What are the transactions we have in the transaction log backups, transaction log file that will synchronizing the LDF to MDF. That time, the database in the backend, it will try to apply the all the transaction from LDF to MDF, and in between the database state, we can see like a pending recovery state. That is the one scenario. The other scenario is like we have a database online, and if you bring the database like a restart the database, what is that means? Like put the database offline and bring the database online. This we can call like a restarting the database. And also if you restart the SQL server, that time also database will go for offline and database will come online. So here, whenever you do the restarting operations, that may be database restart or that may be SQL server restart. When you do that activity, what will happen? The database internally, it will check the operations like a redo page, undo page. Before that, it won't check copy paste. It will check redo paste and undo paste, and it will check the synchronization operation from transaction log file to MDF. That time, if you see any transactions or LSN mismatch or any synchronization, there is no consistency from the LDF to MDF, that time we can see like a database stating as a pending recovery state. So if the database is pending recovery state more time, then later we can see the database called like a suspect state. So before going to the suspect state, what will happen? The database will try to recover the database. That time we can see the database state called like a pending recovery. But if the database stuck in the pending recovery state longer, then internally database we can see like a suspect state. So here, when the database will go to suspect state. So here, as I mentioned, whenever we go for the database restart or SQL Server restart, it will check the transaction recovery from LDF to MDF. That time, if you see any there is a consistency. That is a one scenario, or maybe there is a problem with the database pages. Let me take that one diagram. MS 8. So this is the database. This is the MDF. Lucky this is MDF. This is the LDF. So here, when the database aspect will state, like in the previous classes, we discussed right how the data will flow and how the synchronization happen, how the data will be commit. So what I mentioned here, in the past, the data will come to here. Then later will move to the EMDF. Data will move to the MDF. So here, whenever we restart the database, what will happen? Our database will go to offline and it will try to bring the online. While bringing the online, what will happen? Internally, it will check any transactions are behind before going to the offline. After bringing the database online, it will check internally again and it will synchronize. It will check the data, what are the pending before offline. That will try to push it to the MDF. So while pushing the data from LDF to MDF, here, whenever the data comes here, transaction log file, in the MDF, ultimately, where the data will be stored. We discussed right, the pages and extended. So whenever the data comes, let me take extend example. So here we bring the offline, or we stop the SQL Server. Then we bring the database online, or we restarted the SQL Server. If you do like that, what will happen? It will check the synchronization from LDF to MDF before bringing the database offline or restart the SQL Server offline. What are the transactions are pending in the LDF? That will try to pushing into the MDF. MDF means in the data ultimately stored in the rows, and ultimately the data will be stored in the pages. Then finally the data will be stored in the extend. In the extend, what we have? The pages. The data will be stored in the pages. So while storing the data, if you see any mismatch or if you see any synchronization not properly happen, that time what will happen? The database will go to initially pending recovery. Then it will try to apply the inconsistent data from LDF to MDF, and if you see there is a LDF and MDF data is not counting properly and it is not storing properly in the MDF before shutdown. That time database will go for pending recovery, then it will go to suspect state. That is the one scenario. And other thing is like there is a problem for the LDF. That means what are the files, the physical location the LDF is storing. That time the LDF got corrupted. If LDF got corrupted, what will happen? The database won't available. Why? Because the transaction log file is the core file to store the initial data. Then database will go to MDF. So your log file itself not available. So that means the database will go to suspect state. That is the one scenario. The other scenario is like what are the permanent data? What are the data we are going to store in the disk? That MDF or MDF not available. That means that also disks are not available. So that time also database will go to pending recovery, then will go to suspect state. So here the thing is like LDF disk is not available or MDF disk is not available. That scenario database will go to pending recovery or suspect state. That is a one thing. The other scenario is like the transaction log available, but what are the transaction log available storing in the physical disk that may corrupted. Okay, this log file may be corrupted. That scenario also database will go to suspect state. And other scenario, the MDF got corrupted. MDF got corrupted means inside the MDF, what we have, the data physically stored in the extent and pages. So the data pages are corrupted. If the extent got corrupted, that means pages corrupted means one or two pages got corrupted. Extended corrupted means 8 pages are corrupted. Here more extended got corrupted or 2-3 pages got corrupted or core meta page got corrupted. At that time database will go to suspect. Why? Because data will come to the transaction log file. After that it has to keep the data in the MDF. Inside the MDF what we have? Pages. That pages itself got corrupted. That means database will go to suspect state. So that is the other scenario. The other thing is like what are the other scenarios? Database will go to suspect state. So here the MDF and LDF. Here LDF and MDF. The physically where it will store. Let me go to properties. Go for files. So here we have a 1, 2, 3. We have a 3 NDFs, 1 LDF. So here what are the LDF physical location storing? That drive got full. If drive is full, what will happen? The transaction log file will be full. If the transaction log file full, what will happen? It will, the upcoming transaction, it won't stored. So here the transaction log file, entire transaction log file, what are the we keeping here? Think like a 1 minute. So here, what are the transaction log file? Keeping the disk. This disk got full. then that means if this disk got full, if disk is full, that means transaction log file also full. That scenario, what will happen? It won't allow the upcoming transaction to that particular log file. So here, if you have the transactions are bulk transactions are coming, it will try to insert the transaction log file. That scenario, what will happen? The transaction log file, it is not ready to take the transactions, but the use operations are coming. That scenario, if the database went to pending recovery, the database went to restart state, or maybe SQL Server got restarted. Here, database restart means database went to offline and trying to come online, or else SQL Server restarted. At that time, what will happen? The transaction, what are the transaction of the LDF? It will try to push it here. Before pushing it here, the transaction log file should have some minimum space. Why? Because it has to do some operations internally to get the breathe up. But here, the transaction log file got full. And while pushing the data, the transaction log will go for stressing. If the transaction log file got a stressing, then database will go to suspect state. So here, the ultimately, what I'm telling, the transaction log file is full or disk full. That scenario, database may it will go for suspect state. That is the one possibility. And other possibility, the same thing. What are the data we are keeping to the MDF? That disk got full or MDF reached the maximum size. That time database went to restart state or SQL Server restarted. That time what will happen? It will perform the operations right, like redo and undo operations from the transaction log file. Then MDF itself doesn't have space to accepting the coming transactions to store the data. That time database will go to suspect state. Here, if MDF is full or MDF disk got full, that time database will go to suspect state. That is one scenario. And other scenario, like there is a permissions are missing. The permissions means like here database storing into the physically the drives, here E drive and C drive. So if the SQL Server wants to write the data in the physically, that means the SQL Server database engine have read and write permission. If someone is removed the permission to that particular drive, then SQL Server is not able to write the data or read the data. So that scenario, database will go to suspect state. So here, what are the possibilities? Database will go to suspect state. So let me go for the definition, and we will recall the what we are discussing here. So here, suspect state is the one of the state. In that suspect state, it won't allow the connections to the user operations and database operations, and as well as the application connectivity. So what are the possibilities? Database go for suspect state. So here the thing is like, as I mentioned, we need to club all the points together into one line. Like there may be the problem with the page got corrupted, or maybe MDF file is not available, or LDF file is not available, or what are the files are keeping MDF or LDF? Both are disk got full, and what we discussed, there is a lack of permission on the MDF and LDF, and there is a problem with the synchronization from the LDF to MDF, and there is a problem with the LDF got corrupted, and then 3 to 4 points we discussed, right? These are the possibilities for database go to suspect state. Let me Google it, and what Microsoft is providing the document, what are the possibilities database will go to suspect. Yeah. So the definition is suspect state indicates that the database recovery process has initiated, but it's failed. I told you right initially, it will state the try to recover the database. From recover the process means like it will apply, redo and undo operations, and the recovery process got failed to complete successfully. This typically means that the primary file group of the database is suspect or may be damaged or corrupted, making the database unavailable to the users. Here, what is that means? The primary file group. The primary file group means like the MDF got corrupted. MDF is the core physical file or physical disk to store the data. That is a one thing. So here, what are the possibilities? Database will go to suspect state. The database files got corrupted. Here, data file or log file might be physically damaged. The physically damaged means what are the files we are storing in the drives? Inside the files got corrupted. Missing or inaccessible data files. That means SQL Server cannot locate or access the necessary data files. What is that means? In the physical location, the file may be missing, or maybe it is not able to access because of the permission issue. The transaction log issues. The transaction log issues means, as I mentioned, the transaction log might corrupted, or other might be insufficient space for it to grow, to preventing the recovery operations. So here the transaction log might be corrupted means like inside the transaction log, what we have, the transaction we are having VLFs. That VLF may be corrupted, or maybe it won't have sufficient space to hold the data. That means log file got full. And the other option is like hardware or system failures. That means the power outages, unexpected SQL Server shutdowns during the transaction can lead to the state. Here power outages are unexpected suspect. That means both scenario, what will happen? The database will go to restart state. Like database went to offline and it will try to bring online. Or SQL Server shut down unexpectedly. If you do the unexpectedly shutdowns, what will happen? In that particular database, if you have any long running queries, okay, if you're running the long running queries, it will produce a lot of transaction log buffers in the transaction log file. That may be committed, or that may be incommitted, or that may be rollback state. So in between, the database got went to suspect state. Database went to shutdown mode. Once you bring the online state, it will try to recover the state. But most of the data not committed or synchronization between the LDF to MDF. That means hardware or system failures cause to database go to suspect state. So, and one more scenario, insufficient resources. insufficient resource means lack of disk space or memory can handle the recovery process. So here, what is that means? Lack of disk space, that is MDF or LDF, what are the keeping into the physical locations. Then memory can handle recovery process. What is that means? That what we discussed in the past, how the data synchronization will happen, LDF to MDF, but in between the data will first recording into the buffer cache. From there, it will go to the MDF, right? Here, the buffer cache got full, and what are the dirty pages pushing from LDF to like buffer cache to MDF? That scenario, we have an issue with memory. That time also, the database will may go to suspect state. Whenever you are having a buffer cache issues or memory issues, it won't go. But there is a possibility it will go to suspect state. Why? Because the buffer cache, it will synchronizing the process to recover the data from LDF to MDF. So if the database went to suspect state, what will happen? The users not able to connect, and recovery failure. The SQL Server cannot complete the necessary recovery operations to bring the database online. What is that means? It won't put the data, complete data to from LDF to MDF. That is a recovery failure. So generally, the recovery depends for the LDF. LDF is corrupted, the recovery won't happen. So resolving the suspect state. So resolving the suspect state, generally we have some traditional approach. So traditional approach, before going to the traditional approach, we have to do from some from our side. So whenever we see the database suspect, let me come here. So here we have a SQL Server. Okay. What was happening? We have a voice patching. We have a voice patching happen. That voice patching, what will happen? The Windows team will push the operating system related patches that will apply the virtual machine or computer. Once you apply the voice patches, what will happen? The Windows server will go for reboot. That means it's a change window for approved. But from the SQL perspective, if you have any long running queries running, or maybe we have a transaction log file, DBCC SQL per log space. We have a long running queries running on the system. Okay. If you're running the long running system queries, what will happen? The long running query will produce the use log buffer in the transaction log file, right? If you have the more transaction in the transaction log file, what will happen? The transaction log utilization will be like a 95 or 80 above. So that means transaction log file is maybe full. When we go for voice reboot, internally what will happen? What are the services we have? What are the services we have? In the server manager. This is the server manager. What are the services we have? What will go? In the startup mode, it will go to offline, stop mode, and it will try to bring online. So here, in the Windows level services, our SQL Server, one of the services, right? So once we rebooted the VM, what will happen? These services will go to stop state and it will go to running state. So what is that means? Our SQL Server got restart. Once the SQL Server restart, what will happen? Let me show here. Let me restart the SQL Server. So think like a Windows got rebooted. If we rebooted, database VM will go for offline, it will bring online. That time SQL Server will go for offline. Once the VM is up, the SQL Server will come running state. So here, if you go here, check it the error log. XP underscore read error log. If you observe the read error log, as yesterday what I mentioned, the error log will be generate newly, right? So here, if you observe the error log, first database master will go for up. That means master database will go for offline. It will try to bring master database online. Then model, MSDB, TempDB. Then what will happen? Other databases. The start ping into the other user database. See here, what is happening? The database offering performing the redo and undo operations in the transaction log file. So whenever the SQL Server restarted or rebooted, internally the SQL Server will operate the CheckDB and also it will perform the redo operations. Whenever you're doing the redo operations, it will check the committed data will pushing into the MDF and uncommitted data will be staying into the LDF. That time, if you have any transaction log file is full, or what are the scenarios we discussed? That may be permission issue. That may be permission issue, or that may be LDF full, or that may be disk full. And if it is not able to complete the redo operations, that time SQL Server database will go to suspect state. That means whenever the Windows team rebooted the VM, and that if you have seen that database is failed to redo operations, database will go to suspect state. So that scenario, what we need to do? Don't go for traditional approach. What is the traditional approach? Database went to suspect state. Yeah, it is giving like a clear definitions, like a file group collection, some other thing, but we'll go for recovery process. Initially what they said, restore from the backup. Don't go for, whenever you go for a restore suspect state, the first step is not a restoring state. This is the last final process for bringing the database using the backup. Whenever you see the database restoring, like suspect state, here the mention that one of the article is telling restore from the backup. Don't go for from the backup. That is the last process. Then one more is like repairing the MS SQL database. So this is the process. So here what we need to do? They're telling put the there is a one flag. Try to reset that flag. That may try to bring the database online, and we have other process. So don't go for this all the process. Okay. Why? Because it will take longer time, or maybe it will go for like a it will take a longer time. Why? Because if the database having 1 TB or 500 TB. If you run the CheckDB, what will happen? It will try to run the CheckDB on the entire database. That will take 1 hour or 2 hours. But the problem is different. But if you running the CheckDB without checking the initial investigation, by looking at the state, we have a problem. So in the Gopher, in a Microsoft any document, what they will tell, they will provide all these steps. Let me go for another document. So here also they're telling go for emergency mode and check DB this scenario, but don't go for traditional approach when we go for seeing the database suspect state. So here what is that means? Here when we see the database suspect from the here, like we can see like some yellow mark and we can see a suspect mode in the database. When we see the suspect state, what we need to do? First, try to bring the database forcefully online. What is the command and what it will do? Forcefully online means alter database name like Adi lab check MUL multi underscore with rollback IMD immediate. So here try to bring the database forcefully. How to do it? It means like we need to bring the database like a set no, not multi-user, alter database and set online. Set online with rollback immediate. So whenever you see the database suspect state, try to bring the database forcefully, like set online with rollback immediate. What will happen? It will try to bring the database online. While bringing the database online, the same operations it will perform. From what we are seeing from the error log, like it will try to push the data from LDF to MDF, or maybe it will check the database state consistency. So when we run these operations, the command, if the command is successfully completed, that means database will come online. So generally what will happen after Windows OS rebooted or SQL rebooted, we can see the database suspect state. Then what we can do, simply run the alter database name set online with rollback immediate. That will bring the database forcefully to online. If the command is successfully, that means database will come online. If the command is not successfully executed, and that scenario, what it will do? It will provide the causes why the database went to suspect state. In the output, we can see the like there is no space transaction log file to hold the data, or else it will go give the error like there is no space to hold the primary data file full, or maybe it will give the error there is no sufficient space or permission or memory kind of errors. So whenever you running this command, it will provide the indicate why the database went to suspect state. If the error indicating tell the transaction log file is full, then what we need to do? We can go for this particular disk, and try to sync the other database, or try to clean up the disk and give some storage to breathe up that particular database transaction log file. Okay, so here once the output got like a transaction log file is full means, then go for the disk and do the disk cleanup, and again run the alter command. So if the problem with the log file, a problem with the disk full, then once we do the cleanup, the database will come online. The same will applicable for the MDF is full or NDF is full. That scenario went to that particular disk and do the cleanup and try to run the alter online command. Sorry, that is the other thing. The other thing is like if you got the error like the file is not able to access or the physical file is not available. So whenever you run this command, if you get the output like the file is unable to open, if you get that error, that means that may be problem with the drive. Means what are the drives we have? This drive may be not attached. After rebooting the VM, that E drive not attached to the server. Or maybe after VM the reboot, what are the permissions we have? That particular data files, the permissions got missed. So if you get the error like not able to open, that means that we need to check the drive. If the drive is not attached, and we have to inform the Windows team to attach the drive. If the drive is attached, but even though we can see the error like not able to open the files, that means inside the disk we don't have sufficient permissions. Then what we need to do? We have to go to the inside the database disk, then go to here. We have to provide the permission here because previously this file have SQL Server, database engine, read and write, but somehow this permission got missed. So here we have to what we need to do? Come to this physical file and go to security and go to edit and here provide the SQL Server database engine service account permissions. That is the one thing. So here if you try to bring the database forcefully, that will tell the cause. Don't go for other traditional method. If what are the suggestions are giving here, like a log file full, data file full, or maybe files are not able to open and other thing. Those are nothing help. Then go for the traditional approach. So in the past, like we have a after VM reboot, we have a 500 GB database went to suspend state. Then the people got confused. They are going for check what they're going to do. They're going to run the CHECKDB and other operations. They did not try this command. So what we did, simply we ran this command, database come online. So that means we are avoiding the 1 hour or more than 1 hour downtime because database comes online easily. And other scenario like we did the cleanup and we did the MDF cleanup and some other scenario disk got not attached and we attached and some other scenario database files having permission missing, we given the permissions. So this is the one process to fixing the suspect state. What are the process we followed that is not helping? Then what we need to do? We have to go for the traditional method. In the traditional method, the first step is try to reset the suspect flag. Let me go for the steps. What they are telling? EXEC SB underscore reset status. Then before that, so here, how to know database is online, offline? Select database property EX database name, Adi Lab, single quotation, status. For using this state, we can see like what is the database status. Like it may be whenever the database went to suspect state, we can see here pending recovery or suspect state. So once we see the suspect state, for the traditional approach, before that, try this option and try to fix the errors, what will get the output. If the what are the fixes that does not help, then go for the traditional. The traditional is like a Adi Lab. Yeah, my database is online, but I'm considering like a database like a suspect. So the suspect stack, we need to reset. Then try to bring the database online. If comes, it's okay. If not, then we have to go for other steps. So the first step is like reset the status. So the interview will expect from here because most of the people doesn't aware of this process. Okay. So here they may think they will expect from this process, but you have to tell recently I faced the suspect state. Before going to the traditional method, I tried this processor. This was helped. So you can tell I faced 3 to 4 times. One is log file full, another one is data file is full, another one is disk full, and maybe permission issue or maybe disk got attached. Then we have to go for this process. Then step by step. Then put the database into suspect emergency mode. So in the before I forgot to tell one more state emergency mode, emergency state or emergency mode, emergency state. So that means database will go to red flag. Let me put it. What I did with rollback. I am needed. I am delay. See, database is showing like a emergency mode. If you emergency mode, it will allow the connections. So the user will try to connect. That will give the some disturbance. Then what you can do? Put the database single user mode. Then put the single user mode. After that, run the CheckDB. So here the first option is set the reset status, then put the database single user with emergency mode, then run the CheckDB. So whenever you run the CheckDB, what will happen? It will perform the internal operations. Like I will explain the in depth in the later, but when we run the CheckDB internally, there are three operations: check catalog, check catalog, and one more operation. Internally, it will do three operations, and it will try to scan the all the pages. If you have any corrupted, it will provide, and also if you have any LDF issues, it will try to repair the LDF. So whenever you running the DB CheckDB, what it will do? It will try to repair the LDF. If the LDF is partially corrupted, then it will try to recreate the new LDF. And if you have any pages got corrupted, like the synchronization, like index page or some other paging have issue, it will repair, like recreate, but it won't fixes the metadata corrupted and pairs that corruption, but it will repair the transaction log file partially corrupted. So here database is partially corrupted, then like partially LDF corrupted means it will try to create the LDF. Then database, it will come online. Sometimes if the LDF and LDF data is not scanned properly, means data is not stuck between LDF and MDF. That time CheckDB won't fix the suspect state. So, but it will provide why the database went to suspect. That LDF VLFs more corrupted, or maybe any MDF or any issues. In the bottom, we can see the error, like it will print the error. CheckDB, zero consistency or zero allocation means there is no problem. Zero allocations. That means the page and extensions got good. Means allocation means kind of the physical data storing. The pages are extended are good. Zero consistency. That means the data having inconsistency from LDF to MDF. So here if you see any allocation or consistency errors, then we have a chances to VLF got corrupted, or the physical data got means tables are got corrupted. Then what we need to do? We have to repair the database and we have to bring the database online. Here if you see any allocations or consistency errors, then definitely we have to go for repair the database. So here the third step, mostly bring the database online whenever the LDF is partially corrupted. Even though if you run the DB CheckDB, still database not coming online. That means if you have more errors, then other option is like, here the thing is like there is a chance to go for power outage. Okay, if the power outage, don't log off. I will switch it to my mobile network. Okay, if power goes. Yeah. Then the other option is like try to run the database repair rebuild. Okay, repair rebuild means like it is not going to do any data loss. So here DB CheckDB repair rebuild. The repair rebuild, what it will do? If you see consistency errors, then go for repair rebuild. If you see allocation errors, sometimes the repair rebuild will fix, but it won't do. So before going to the data loss, try to run the repair rebuild. here the thing is like one more option. If you see any consistency errors, if you go little bit up, here the thing is like here one table got corrupted. Out of 1,000 tables, one table got corrupted. Then there is no point of to running the entire repairing the rebuild up for the database. Go for only that particular repair rebuild option. So you can check the Google how to do for table repair rebuild for one table. So now here I'm going for repair rebuild. Why? Because one table got corrupted and there is no make sense to run the entire database to repair. Why? Because one table got corrupted, try to repair it. If the repair succeed, then we are good. If the not helping, then go for data loss. So here I'm turning entire repair rebuild. If the repair rebuild also not helping, then the other option is repair allow underscore data loss. So here we need to run the repair underscore data loss, the last option. Why? Because it will remove the damaged data. What will happen? Like think about like we have a problem, like a cancer or any sugar patient, they have a problem. So if you have the problem initially identified, we have a medicine and we can do that. But the problem is like a serious. If you not remove that part, what will happen? The person will go direct. So like that, here what will happen? We have to remove the damaged data and bring the database online. So this operation will do the exactly. It will remove the damaged data and it will keep the entire data. So repair allowance ka data loss. Then the thing is like we have to check other actions as well. Like the customer will ask how many records and what data got is missing. So for that we have to go for other test. The first year our ultimate goal is try to bring the database online. What are the steps we followed? Like forcefully online, reset status and check DB, repair rebuild. That does not help. Then last to last step is repair data loss. Try to repair it. It will remove and it will bring the database online. Once you repair the data loss, we can see here. We can see the output, like the data got table got repaired. This table got repaired, and we can see the output in the middle of the output. In the last, we can see zero consistency, zero things. That means database comes like a cleanly. If the repair underscore allow underscore data loss also not fixing the database corruption, that means database which is still in the suspect state. So if you run the repair allow underscore data loss, even though if you are seeing zero allocations like 2, 3 like the number, instead of zeros, if you see any numbers, that means data is not fully come clean state. Then the last option is restore the database from the cleaned backup. The clean backup means we cannot tell. Why? Because when the database got corrupted. So here our environment every weekend DBCC CheckDB it will go run. Whenever the DB CheckDB run, it will scan the entire pages and LDF and it will tell if you have any issue. But after running the weekend, like Sunday, CheckDB run. If you not seeing any errors, that's fine. But Monday, CheckDB we won't run. Monday also it's fine. Then Tuesday also fine. Wednesday there is some damage issue on the pages. So here we are not sure that in between when the database got corrupted. So here what we need to do, go for trial and error for backup and restore. So for checking the clean backup, we need to go for trial and error. Go for middle of the week, then go for the starting of the week, and go for ending of the week. If you see, go for all the process. In between, if you see middle of the week, if you are not seeing an error, that means the data is corrupted after the Monday. Then go, if you see middle of the week, Wednesday, if the data is corrupted, that means that may be corrupted Tuesday. If the middle of the week is not corrupted, then go for middle of the like end of the week, like a Saturday. Saturday is corrupted, then go for Sunday backup restore. Like that, we have to go for trial and error for backup and restore. So this is the process for fixing the database from suspect state. So you have to understand this scenario when the database will go to suspect and what are the possibilities ways. So you have to explain this method. So let me stop the recording. And you people have to read it and you have to provide the answer as the real time. Not for the documentation overhead. If you go for documentation overhead, it will tell only reset flag, suspect emergency mode, repair underscore data loss. But they won't tell like forcefully log file full, data file full, permission issue, disk full. So you have to tell the interview, and after that you have to provide this scenario. And also there is no make sense running the CheckDB for a simple synchronization issue. So try to run database, bring online forcefully, then later go for other process. I hope you understand for the suspect state, and if you have any issues, let me know. Let me stop the recording, and I thought I will go for other scenarios like master corrupted and model corrupted. And I thought I will try to explain to show the file is missing, like forcefully removing the one LDF like that. But time, I think almost we reaching the 8:30. I'm stopping the recording, but you have to try to implement if you see any suspicion in a environment, or else give the answers to the interview. Let me stop recording.